time and faith. How many word pairs do you know that divide people? There are many. Liberals denounce the divisions, yet by doing so only deepen the divisions. We are told we are one race, and yet why? If we truly are one race, why does it need to be said? Even so, it is only the most radical of persons with the most extreme kind of agenda who would argue the races are not part of a human race. But, if all persons compose the human race and animals do not, are humans really part of the group called animals? Notice how it is easy to define a dog. The one definition includes all dogs despite the plethora of dog breeds. No one confuses a dog with a cat nor a cat with a cow. These are distinct species despite having far more diversity than humans have. From the simplest of forms to the most complex, all plants and animals have been defined by morphological features. The races of man are also defined morphologically. It is easy to visually identify a human as a human and as something distinct from all other creatures in existence. We could, possibly, show an alien a picture of a person and they would be able to identify all beings that are human, and know which creature is human and which were not human, being animal. But what if the alien was given a list of all creatures on the planet, with a breakdown of their unique, morphological features? What would we write down when we got to our own kind? What unique morphology does men have? Obviously, we could not use racial designators. The category of human being is not defined by creatures with white skin. Most modern people conversant with the problem of defining our kind will probably use some descriptor using the size of our brain, which would need to be relative to some other factor, as age has a lot to do with brain size. A simple definition of H. sapiens states we are great apes characterized by hairlessness, bipedalism, and high intelligence. A hairy cripple with subhuman intelligence would not be seen as human by the terms of this definition. If we put the consciousness of a dog into a computer, would this be a dog? How about if the full consciousness of a human were transferred into a computer, would we consider this to be a human? We would have to, even if the computer lacked biology and looked nothing like what we associate with man's physical form. Which tells us that no matter how much we try, we cannot define humans by any set of physical criteria. Human beings, on the basis alone, ought not be considered an animal. This argument establishes a line of demarcation between animal and man. But does this division mean all humans are part of one human identity? But that is the question. What we have shown is that physical features are insufficient to make us different from one another in a significant way, but this is sufficient to divide us from the lower forms. In summary, we cannot use the fact we possess similar physical features to unite us, even though we cannot use physical features as a reason to divide us. But being insubstantial, not having an identity tied to morphology, begs the question, what makes us human? Humans are logical, moral, and spiritual. We use information and are defined by our use of information. Humans are conceptual in that they live in a created reality. The so-called physical reality exists, but the environment of man is composed of created things, namely institutions and ideas that have nothing to do with buildings and other physical features. Christians and Muslims live in totally different realities, even if they are neighbors. Atheists live in a totally different one again. These realities are composed of information, not physical things, despite their being physical correlates to the ideas. Information is temporal. Information is not spatial dependent. Information is about frequency and periodicity. Information is about modulations in time. Humans are temporal as information is temporal. We live in a time-framed reality. Animals tend to be spatial defined, which is why they can be defined by physical characteristics, whereas man cannot. Animals process information in terms of spatial factors or constants. The owner of a dog is a spatial thing to the dog. It sees us in terms of space and food locations and other physical factors. We can understand this better if we think about how we see humans and how we see our pets. The dog belongs to a space and is walked and petted and so on. We do not attach temporality to a pet. But a human who remains stagnant in their relationship to us is soon set aside. Human relationships have to be modulated. This is the problem with relationships that are entered into on a trial basis or are conditional. By using these kinds of delimiters, we remove the time component from a relationship. Especially when it comes to marriage, there are no time boundaries but death. If we go into a relationship where divorce is a possibility, we miss the point of having a relationship. Do we even enter into a friendship thinking that the day you fail to have coffee with me, that is it for the friendship, it is over? The temporality of man means time is significant. Yes, we have clocks, but this is conventional time. Were our lives lived by the clock, we would eventually become intensely dissatisfied. A lot of things are routine, but we use clocks not just to synchronize events, but to mark out a block of time that is unstructured to dedicate it to some type of progress. There needs to be progress in our life, or we do not feel we are getting anywhere. But what does this mean, to have progress, and how do we achieve progress, not just in our life but in our community and nation? If today is the same as yesterday and tomorrow the same as today, we have lost our humanity. Even the most tribal group practicing subsistence culture is trying to progress along some continuum, regardless how insignificant it appears to us. It's not as if every human group has managed to progress in a way that we understand progress. Even the West changed little until recent times. If we are honest, it seems we lost of our abilities, or the abilities that are seen in the monoliths and architecture of past ages. The problem is an engineering problem, and the question is, how do we engineer progress? But the first question is, what is progress? How is it defined? We need to know what it is and how to define it before we can get it. We must understand progress as a temporal phenomenon. As was said, if everything continued on as it always had, there would be no time and no progress. Time imposes progress on us whether we want it or not. Time not only imposes a direction on us, it imposes boundaries within which progress can take place. We have said that if everything kept reoccurring, there would be no time, but this is not possible because of a thing called entropy. The universe is running down, or if you like, time is running out. For time to pass, time has to have direction. If we assume each of us has 70 years and 10, and each year changes our age, we get to a point where we have acquired some abilities, but time begins to run out on what we are able to do with these skills. Most people's lives are, however, filled with reoccurring events. They get up, get ready for the day, and go to work. The evening probably has a pattern to it, fixed to the hours and day of the week. Others go on to achieve greater things. Some cultures seem to progress and civilize, whereas others appear to be mostly stagnant. What we want to do in the last part of this talk is look at the differences between a progressive and stagnant culture. Progress is a temporal phenomenon defined by entropic reversal. This might seem complicated or impossible to achieve, but life does this. Most people think economic development is a complicated event, nearly impossible to achieve. Yet, many countries created developed civilizations, in the past and present, without much difficulty. When we look at the animal kingdom, we see creatures who adapt to a niche, which they successfully exploit, or they die out. Humans do this to a degree. Eskimos do not live the same way Bantu do. But then we think of God, He creates whatever He wills as He wills it. Time and space are not considerations, and indeed He creates these things as desired and neutralizes them when it suits Him. But we cannot live as God, and most of us are not content to live as Eskimos or in a subsistence culture. That being said, there is a thread that runs through many cultures. One predominantly racist culture is Islam. We say it is racist because it is parasitic in how it operates. Parasitism is not unique to Islam, it was a common path to take in the days of the city-state. To some degree, Islam is trapped in this period of time. But at the same time, many individuals and groups also betray the traits of a parasite. Parasites exploit other groups. It was common for a city-state to create an empire by defeating other cities, enslaving the population or subjugating them, and imposing extortionate penalties on them. Kings often paid their armies using the booty gained from victories. So parasitism is the way animals live, but it is also a way of living embraced by many people, as it is in subsistence cultures. A subsistence group subsists off of what nature provides and does not attempt to progress to the point where they are adding value to the natural world. The dilemma parasites face is they cannot exploit others unless that group has gained some level of economic development. If everyone attempted to be parasitic and no one worked, humanity would not long survive. Someone has to do the work. There is little in nature that humans can use without some level of processing. In subsistence cultures, people live modular lives. Each person does much as the others in the tribe do. The work of one more or less matches the work of all. So, there is little in the way of competition. there is little impetus to trade or steal.